Hail and well met, traveler. Welcome to the tavern. Did you know this is the place where more than half of the greatest adventures in history have begun? But before those adventurers took their first steps, they watched and calculated who would join their party. Why, look over there. There's a mighty barbarian from the Frozen Lands. Strong, mighty, full of honor and wisdom. I happen to know that one. They go by Matt Rossi. And look over there to the right. That woman working away on her mechanical dog. She's cunning, witty, and I've seen her bounce more than her fair share of ne'er-do-wells out of here before I can even blink. I happen to know that she goes by the name Liz Harper. And me? Oh, my name's Joe Perez. And I'll be your tavern keep. Welcome to Tavern Watch.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Tavern Watch, the podcast where we talk about RPG and RPG games of all types, and occasionally other things, but we're sticking pretty closely to the RPG stuff here. With me this week are Joe Perez, Liz Harper, and Phil Urich, who's basically just, you're here now, right, Phil?
I'm just here now.
Awesome. So yeah, usually what we do is talk about games and so forth that we're doing. Like we have a little intro thing we usually do, so we're going to start with that. I'm going to say, Liz, what are you reading, playing, or looking forward to? Anything you want to talk about right now?
I'm looking forward to, I backed a Kickstarter for something called City of the Black Rose. Has anyone else heard of this one?
Heard of, but don't know much about it. So
yeah, it's a noir horror setting that seems really cool, designed by the people behind Three Black Halflings, which just wrapped up a Kickstarter, probably due out end of this year maybe for backers, so I'm looking forward to reading that. But it's like way in the future. I want to read it now. Yeah, that's how it always goes. And I just picked up a
Kickstarter.
Yeah, it's like you get so enthusiastic and then it's all the waiting, and there's so many cool tabletop projects on Kickstarter lately. I also just picked up Yezeba's Bed and Breakfast, which I feel like I'm kind of behind the times on that one, but looking forward to getting into reading that, and just really wishing I had more tabletop games to play because my regular weekly, monthly group kind of fell apart. So it's just playing with you guys, which is also really fun. I appreciate
sorry
you all.
that's all you got,
But I more. I want to play more games. There are so many great games out there, and I want to be playing them. And I'm just playing a game a month with you guys, which is great. But more games, please.
Please stop digging
more games.
I love you climbing out of this hole and then digging another little bit deeper. It's very adorable.
All right, then.
I'm trying.
Now that Liz has made us all feel good about ourselves. Phil, anything you want to cover here?
We love you, Liz. I'm just running one game a month for Tavern Watch. That's all. No, I'm good. I just literally as we were sitting down to record, I ran downstairs because my physical copy of Mythic Bastionland arrived ahead of schedule. So shout out to Plus One Experience, who is shipping that in the U.S. So they had about 2 weeks ago, they had the fulfillment for the Kickstarter to handle, plus about 20 orders. And then the YouTube channel Quinn's Quest, featuring one of the primary, reviewers who was also on Shut Up and Sit Down, which used to do board games. Quentin Smith now does tabletop reviews. Posted a very effusive 40-minute or so review of Mythic Bastionland. Chris McDowell, the creator, then sent a little note to Plus One XP that said, "Hey, you all may see a small bump in sales from this." They went from the Kickstarter plus 20 orders to the Kickstarter plus 500 orders, and I believe that has doubled in the time since then. So they were saying July 28th to even ship this game, but it arrived today. So I ran down to get it because it's raining here, and I didn't want UPS to just leave it in the rain, which of course they did. So yeah, new book to read. I've been flipping through a lot of different books. This Fabula Ultima and Shadow Dark. Shadow Dark because I may be running that in the near future, and the other two because as people who follow me on social media may have seen me complaining. I want to run one of these games, but I need to settle on one, and I'm being very indecisive about it. So just more games than I know what to do with at this point. Trying to stay away from Kickstarter, but like Liz, I do love the RPG Kickstarters.
Dangerous.
It's like I have to not think about them though. I have to think of it as a gift to future Phil. So I'm like, yes, I'm going to put down this $60 or $70 or $80 or whatever, and I'm going to not think about it. And in like a year and a half, it'll show up, and I'll just be very excited and surprised. So that's what I've been doing lately.
Crowdfunding at this point is kind of like the Steam sales, except it's more like $70 or $80, and you have no idea when this thing is going to come around.
Yeah. But I'll at least read them. Unlike, my body is a machine that turns Steam sales into 0 hours played.
Yeah, there is that too. Yeah. Joe, do you have anything you want to talk about?
I mean, I'm just going through the Outgun books in preparation for our next live play. So that's really about all I've got on my docket right now, is just making sure I know what the heck I'm doing, because that seems like a good idea.
Know what you're doing? What?
No.
Mhm.
What is this thing you're saying? It's so odd to me.
I don't know. If there's anybody I trust to wing it, it's probably Joe.
Yeah, I mean, that is in fact what I was going to say.
Fair, but
It
I'd
is
still like to
very
understand
good.
the mechanics of the game, so like,
That's true. I'm very excited about the idea of this game if I could play it, just because I've heard handful of dice and I'm into it.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a fun game.
I was gonna say at most, like at the absolute most, you will only ever need 7d6. So like you're almost never going to get up to that, but I mean you can, and it's very much like Powered by the Apocalypse in a lot of ways, right? It's very cinematic, very you guys dictate sort of the story, and I just throw obstacles in your way whenever you do bad.
Yeah. So, anything else you've been reading, or is that it, pretty much?
That's pretty much it.
Okay. For me, and this is ironic because somebody else mentioned this in the document, and we're going to talk about it later maybe, but I am currently reading Ashes Without Number, which is my first OSR game in a very long time, because I generally don't necessarily get too into the old system Renaissance type games, because they're basically all variations on AD&D. And I like that AD&D is not the D&D we play anymore. I am not one of those people who wants to bring it back. But this one's really fun. Honestly, my first thought about hearing on it, and I didn't hear about it, I heard about it last week for the first time. And so I was like, oh post-apocalyptic. So it is basically, the describing I would do for it, if I was going to describe it, is this is Fallout if they made Fallout now. Or this is Gamma World if they made Gamma World now. And it's basically, the OSR stuff is pretty much what you'd expect. It's rules for playing in a post-apocalyptic game. But what's really interesting is the character campaign, the campaign creation system, where you can basically, it helps you design what exactly you want your apocalypse to be. Like, are you is this a zombie apocalypse? Is this we don't know what happened? Is it just a straight up nuclear war? Is it, hundreds of years ago society fell and now we have weird stuff going on? It's really a toolkit for making your own, Gamma World, Fallout, or whatever, Wastelands, whatever you're trying to make. This is the toolkit for it. You want to do one where the zombie apocalypse just happened and now you have to play characters going through it? You can do that. Do you want to instead do a game like Fallout where 200 years ago the war happened? You can do that. Do you want to go like Gamma World did and say, hey, we don't have no idea when it happened? Could have been thousands of years ago. We got no clue. We just know that everything is different now and there are talking bears. There's a lot of variety to it, and it's really fun. And it's stripped down enough from OSR that you could just use 5e with it and it would be fine. You would not struggle in any way. I'm actually thinking I might try a Powered by the Apocalypse system for it. Quite frankly, I might not use the OSR rules. I'll just use all the stuff about making a campaign. But it's really interesting. I'm really fond of it. I've been reading it pretty much for like the past half hour. Just been going through it, thinking this is really neat. And then I saw the document and it's like, oh, we're going to talk about it. Nice. That means I can just talk about it now. And so there I have. As for what I'm looking forward to, Outgunned Superheroes is coming out. And since Joe's going to be running an Outgunned game next month. Sorry, not next week. You're doing it next week, Joe. Sorry. No, I'm interested in seeing the system as a whole before I then go and mess around with the superhero one. Because anytime anybody puts out a new superhero game, I'm pretty much like, okay, I have to play this now. Yeah, that's pretty much it for me. So now we move on to talking about the op-ed, which is kind of like we have opinions. I'm sure we don't all have opinions. What the heck? This one is, the question asked was, why are there so many games releasing rules light adaptations / versions? And we have 3 just coming out soon or being worked on or having a Kickstarter. First is the Shadowrun Anarchy 2.0, which is a rules light system for Shadowrun. You guys know Shadowrun. There's Exalted Essence, which came out, I think, about 5 months ago. I have a copy of it. It's actually pretty nice, but it's it's basically still the storytelling, whatever they currently call it, system, but way simplified. Like 3rd edition Exalted got to the point where, the book is 700 something pages long. You can, it makes Talislanta look small. You could throw it at people and possibly crush them. And so this is, Exalted Essence, much shorter. The rules are simpler. And finally, we know that Fallout Wasteland Warfare is getting a new 2nd edition coming out, and they've specifically said that they're stripping down the rules, that they're making it a rules light version. So that's at least 3 adaptations going for rules light in recent time. And I'm going to say straight up, I think that this is because of indie games. I think it is because of games like all the various Powered by the Apocalypse ones, the Forged in the Dark ones. They're just...
I mean, can we even call things like Avatar from Magpie indie at this point?
No. Well, we can because it's Magpie. Magpie still is not a big company, but the fact that they had a Kickstarter that big, that's a fair point.
There's an appetite for it, right?
Yeah, I will say Magpie is actually still small enough that pulling enough people into that Avatar game to work on it actually delayed other things that were happening at the same time, which was why Urban Shadows took so long.
Mm-hmm.
So, still an indie company, even if they're attracting some big licenses to these lighter games, I'd say.
Yeah, and it's fair to point out that like even Fallout is a pretty big license. So yeah, I don't know. I do think it's weird, but when I said I blame indie games, I don't blame indie games for the companies making these, because I don't think you really can call Onyx Path an indie company. I don't know. It's weird. It's
Modifius is on that weird cusp too, right? Like
yeah, absolutely.
I think maybe indie games is no longer a term to be really applied unless it's like a zine or something like that. It was an established company. I think it's Wizards of the Coast or Hasbro, then Paizo, and then literally everybody else, right? Like it's just
it's fair.
But
I mean more in terms of like the fact that the rise of those game systems, the ones I mentioned, like Powered by the Apocalypse, came from like 10 years ago when those companies were a lot more indie than what they are now.
Yeah, which is absolutely fair, but I think the rise is, and I want to move away from focusing on the indie portion of it because I think
Go ahead.
That's disingenuous a little bit. Is just that in a world where D&D is the dominant or was the dominant role-playing game of choice that you saw everywhere, D&D has a ton of rules. There are rules for literally everything. There are frameworks to do everything from, penning books to hiring, to stabling, to, husbandry and all this other stuff. Like there are rules for everything in D&D, and it can get a bit overcomplicated. And the barrier to entry for D&D is actually still, even now, pretty large for most people, because it's this fear of there's so much I need to know, or I'm just not going to be able to do anything. Whether that fear is founded or not depends on your group and a lot of other factors. But 10 years ago, 5 years ago, however long ago, games like Monster of the Week and other Powered by the Apocalypse stuff and other rules simple games became really popular. And it was even before that we saw like little things getting footholds, like the tri-stat system, or Numenera.
Oh man, hold on, I gotta pour one out.
But we can pour one out for that. But I'm just saying, like, those were all really simple by comparison to D&D. There were less stats to track. There were things that were done under umbrellas of stuff. The rules for figuring out whether you succeeded or not were very simple. So like those became more popular with people because those became a lower barrier for entry for people to start playing tabletop games. And I think that right there, I think it's almost like D&D ate its own tail a little bit is what made these type of games become more popular, and why we are seeing a lot of other game systems look at that and go, maybe we should lighten up the rules a little bit because D&D is not the gold standard anymore. Like, I'll use Modifius as the example for this. I love Modifius games. I love their 2D20 system. I like the Essence system that the other, I can't remember the name of the company off the top of my head, but they use for like the G.I. Joe, Transformers, Power Rangers games. The problem is those games have a lot of rules that you can see are like on par with D&D. Like, they're good games, but you have as much stuff to go through and figure out. Releasing a rules light version or a more simplified version actually opens up more opportunities for people, and then lets them engage potentially with those IPs that would draw them into the hobby space to begin with. And I have this conversation at the shop a lot with one of our regulars, which I'm not going to say his name because I don't know if he wants me to, but I know he listens to the podcast, so you know who you are. Shout out. But we talk about this a lot because when you read the rules, if I sit down at a table with a bunch of new people or a bunch of people that are just looking for a game that isn't D&D, it's a lot easier for me to sell them on, hey, let's try this game. Do you got 2d6? That's all you need, right? Like it becomes, I mean, hell, I sold you guys on playing Shadowrun by making it powered by the apocalypse, by doing it all in like the fantasy version of the sprawl, right? Like, that's what you guys played. You didn't play Shadowrun because Shadowrun's buckets of D6. That's awful to play.
Yeah, it is.
Right?
And
still pointed out it's Renegade. Thank you.
Yeah, and I've been reading this since Matt linked at this. Anarchy actually sounds way more accessible even than regular Shadowrun, and does sound like they're leaning hard into imitating almost like a Blades in the Dark setup.
It does definitely feel like that they are inspired by Blades in the Dark, which is one of the things I thought when I saw it. That's why I mentioned Forged in the Dark. I didn't just keep it. Why can't I remember the name of the system? I just mentioned it. Oh, well. But, you know, it does feel very Blades. But anything else? Liz, you haven't gotten to talk much.
No, carry on.
Okay.
I mean, it's an interesting trend. And, you know, I think about our own games in which, you know, we're playing a monthly game. And we have played a lot of rules light system. You know, when we're doing a one-shot, then sometimes you don't want something that's going to require buckets of rules and a lot of preparation. And we've managed to do 3 polymorph system games, which those are as simple as maybe not as simple as it gets, but extremely simple games that have, they're a limited amount of depth and complexity. They're really fun to play as a one shot, and they're very approachable. You can really just pick up and play and learn what you're doing as you go along. So it's accessibility. This makes games more accessible to more people. And if they're more accessible, that means more people are buying, more people are playing. That means more life for the whole tabletop industry. So it's good to have an option. And I do like a big, crunchy, complicated tabletop game, but also sometimes you just want something straightforward where you can jump in and play and pretend to be a totally different person than you are, which sometimes that's all you want.
One of the things that this reminds me of, though, which is why I'm a little concerned about it, is I don't know how many people remember when Dungeons & Dragons was 2 games. I think probably Joe, Phil, and I all remember it to some degree.
Yep. Back when regular D&D and AD&D cohabitated or coexisted, I guess. And
the thing is that first off, that doesn't quite match this because you cannot argue that original D&D was simpler or more rules light than AD&D. It just had different complicated rules. But still, it does kind of remind me that there's going to be like, which Shadowrun are you playing? Right now, you could actually be like, which Exalted are you playing? And that is, to me, weird. Like, it feels like if you want to make it simpler, just make it simpler. don't necessarily have this version, but also that version. But at the same time, that's not my call. I don't own these IPs. But I do think about it when I think about what they're doing. The fact that they are essentially trying to make an intro version of the game, and like, is the purpose of this to try and get people to eventually play the other version of the game? Like, is this supposed to be training wheels, or is this supposed to be a game on its own? And the Anarchy one, the Anarchy 2.0 does not feel like it's attempting to on-road anybody into Shadowrun. It feels like that's the game you will be playing. If you pick that game up, Shadowrun Anarchy, you will be playing Shadowrun Anarchy. You will not, there's no reason to. You would never want to play both of them. And that, I don't know if that's on purpose. I just feel like it's interesting to see the industry doing this. You're definitely seeing that with Fallout, because Fallout is getting a second edition, and the second edition is going to be rules like. So the first edition, I assume people can still play the first edition, but it will not be competing with the second edition. At least they're usually not supposed.
Well, the interesting thing about the Fallout one is this isn't a rules light version of the RPG. This is a rules light version of their miniatures war game. Specific because it's Wasteland Warfare, which is the Fallout minis game Modiphius also publishes. But second edition also specifically says it is a solo first adventure war game where players can explore a procedurally generated wasteland. That is wild, because that is like what people do with solo tabletop games, like a lot of dice rolling for random mechanics, a lot of like procedural generation, consulting tables, that kind of thing. Like, but with a minis format. So it's like, if you want to get some minis and you want to paint them and have fun with that aspect of it, and now you don't have to go, oh, but no one plays Fallout where I'm at. You have a game. They can now sell a minis game to people who don't have other people to play it with, which is a wild step forward for war games. Because lots of minis games rely on you kind of having somebody to play them with.
I was gonna say it's not necessarily that wild, but this is the first like major mainstream one to try to do that, because
Forge try to do that.
Osprey Games has been doing this for decades, right? So like, Frostgrave, Stargrave, what was the other one that I can't think of? The Lord of the Rings has one. There's a bunch of miniature war games that have solo play rules for them, where essentially they've written out how enemy AI works, right? Like how that intelligence works and how you do it. And yes, you can cheat if you want to, but that defeats the whole purpose. But it's like these games have already been doing. I think even Gamma Wolves, which is a more recent one, which is, hey, do you like mech games? You have Gundams laying around the house. You want to use those like models in a war game? Here you go. Has solo play rules. I think Car Wars has solo play rules. I want to say Gaslands has solo play rules.
Car Wars not only has solo play rules. Car Wars used to actually have the one-on-one adventure path rules.
Yep.
Where there were two people and that's it, and they played like a choose your own adventure type thing. It was really strange.
But like it's nice to see it hit a more mainstream thing, especially with Fallout Wasteland Warfare, because you mentioned like having cool models and going and doing it. There's a whole ton of like models available for Fallout Wasteland that have actually been released as 3D files, either directly through the Modiphius, or also several Humble Bundles have had nothing but Fallout like miniature packs. Like, pay $10, get the entire library of all 3D printable miniatures for Fallout Wasteland Warfare. So like,
that was a very cool thing to encourage. Shout out Modiphius.
Well, we're going to talk about that probably a little bit later, but like, that's the way of the future, right? And Modiphius is just sort of embracing it, and I'm here for it.
All right, I think at this point we probably should move on though, because we do have other topics. As much as I probably could personally talk about this one all day, I do think we've covered it. So next up, we're going to be talking about Diamond Comics and what they're doing as distributors, not just to comics, but to RPGs. Go ahead, Joe. Diamond Comic
Distributors. So I have strong feelings about this. So I'm going to let you guys go first, because otherwise you're going to have to cut me off at some point.
That's okay. We can go first. I'm personally reading what's going on, what's happening. If to bare bones it, and I know Joe is going to come in and correct me because he's actually got a more nuanced view, but to bare bones it, Diamond is going bankrupt. They're filing for, I believe, is it Chapter 11 or Chapter 7?
They filed They filed for Chapter 11 in January.
Mhm.
Okay. As part of that whole process, they are now basically trying to say that all the consignment that they have been using, they've been selling, and how consignment works is they don't own this. This isn't merchandise that Diamond bought. And
They're-
we're gonna get to it, Liz. I promise. But this isn't stuff that Diamond bought. This is consignment, which means they take it. It's supposedly owned by the people who are selling it. They then sell it to they distribute it to companies, and then they get half the money goes back to the original company, and the distributor and the stores split the rest, supposedly. However, now that they're going for Chapter 11, now that they are basically in the process of having their assets determined, they're filing to say that all these companies that have got stuff on sale of consignment with them have not filed the proper paperwork, and therefore Diamond Comics Distribution can seize the consignments and sell them themselves to pay their creditor. Go ahead, Liz. I just wanted to get that out.
Well, I just wanted to say Diamond is literally a distributor. So they have stock from lots of publishers that they distribute. I mean, that is kind of their role here.
Mhm.
So they have, it sounds like a lot of stock for a lot of small companies. There are some big names in here, which, Matt, you were talking about earlier. There are names like Marvel on this list, but there are also names like Paizo, Green Ronin, other smaller press publishers, particularly in the tabletop industry, that can't absorb having a large portion of their inventory be just vanished because they have not been paid for these books, and they would not get paid for these books if this agreement goes through and a Diamond sells them off to pay other.
Yeah, and that's pretty much the problem. Like in one of the articles that Liz first mentioned when we were first looking into this was Green Ronin had to go crowdfund a lawyer because Diamond is going to basically try and seize hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of their merchandise that they own and sell it and give the money to Chase and other big creditors. And none of that money would be going to Green Ronin. And that's just one example of the many, many, many companies on this list. Joe, were you about to talk?
Yeah, I was going to say, so we get one per episode, and I think I'm going to use it here.
It's not actually true, but okay.
I Diamond is full of shit. And so the way that the relationship between a distributor and a store works is, at least from an endpoint, I have to pay them up front for this product. Anything a store takes in, we have paid them for. Every comic, every book, anything we get from them, we pay for. Now, in rare circumstances, you may have terms with the distributor where you have 7, 30, 60, 90 days to pay whatever the total sum is of their particular your order with them. After we give them that money, that transaction is done, and they immediately have to pay the company that they're distributing on behalf of whatever was taken in with their portion taken out, right? That's how that works. Now, essentially, this is this product that hasn't been sold to a store yet. They do not own it, and they're trying to essentially argue that they have ownership of it from some legal loophole of, well, it hasn't been paid for yet. Well, of course it hasn't been paid for yet. You broke your distribution. You broke your ability to send to anybody because the minute you filed Chapter 11, everybody stopped getting anything we ordered from Diamond. The amount of Marvel comics, Image Comics, IDW comics that did not show up and still haven't shown up to stores is astronomical, to the point where Marvel has just gone and started reprinting comics that were already done and already in the hands of Diamond and sent them to, I believe it's Penguin Random House now has the distribution rights for them. It is ridiculous. And if this succeeds in court, that's going to end a ton of these companies. Like the bigger ones like Marvel can eat this. But here's the other problem with that. Marvel's owned by Disney. I really, really hope Disney sends their lawyers to slap Diamond around because this cannot stand. They need to send this product back to the companies because Green Ronin's in trouble and Paizo is going to take a huge hit. and all these small companies that go through them it's going to be awful. But yeah, this is ridiculous. This is one of the most ludicrous. Well, we have it in our warehouse, and you didn't file the paperwork, so now we own it and we can sell it and give all that money to our debtors. Good Lord. Wow. Sorry, I'll stop. I see Liz's...
No, that's pretty much exactly what I think we're all thinking. But Liz or Phil, if you have anything you particularly want to talk about, now is the time.
I was just really happy to have Joe's perspective on this because I only know what I read and this massive list of companies whose stuff Diamond thinks they own now. Holy cow.
Yep. Liz?
Like, there are so many recognizable names on here.
I should note that Green Ronin has a crowdfunding goal of $50,000, which is a huge amount of money. But that's the sort of funds it takes to, go in and do this right and really fight this.
Yeah.
Yes. And I mean, even if you consider this a slam dunk case, even if Diamond is overreaching, you need to get a lawyer to present that case for you. And lawyers are expensive. So far, they have raised $36,000, which is a lot, but they may need more to actually fight this. And if they can't fight this, this could be devastating for Green Ronin and other small press that were using Diamond to distribute inventory.
Yeah, and Liz is right to mention Green Ronin because, like a lot of the other companies, especially the role-playing game distributor companies here, those game companies are like 2 to 7 people sometimes.
Yeah.
We're not talking, even like a company like Magpie is big compared to some of these companies. So this is not, if you take all their merchandise and you don't give them the money for it, you've effectively stolen their merchandise. Yeah, go ahead, Joe, I hear you.
I was going to say, so honestly, if I were these companies and I had access to even a little bit of a lawyer, because they've published the name of all 128 companies that are out there, I'd be reaching out and trying to collectively go after them. And because again, it does take a lot of money to fight this, and Liz is absolutely correct. If I was, let's say, a lawyer for Frank Miller Presents, I'd be going to Marvel and being like, hey, remember that relationship we have where I wrote a bunch of your comics and stuff like that? Well, they're trying to steal my IP like they're trying to steal your IP. Can we get in on this together and get our product back? So
yeah, I've also noticed Goodman Games is on here. Goodman Games is like 10 people tops. Yeah, that's like designers, publishers, warehouse, and Joseph Goodman himself. It is not a big company. They also have stuff on here, and I don't know how well they're going to be able to eat this hit either.
And I was wondering what was going to happen too, because about a month ago, we got at the shop, we got a really cryptic email from Diamond in particular. And everything was starting to go down before July because, again, the hearing is soon. And I think they were prepping for this. And now that I see this makes a little more sense. They were trying to pump us for 5 or 6 times what we actually owed them on our bill. And so, our only outstanding bill with them was $600, and it was well within our 30-day term. We are on week 2 of the term, and they were like, well, you owe $3,600. And we're like, where is this coming from? And we keep meticulous books, right? Maybe some other stores got hit with this and they got away with it. And I seriously hope that more stores were smart about this, but I keep meticulous records of every bill we pay out. I keep meticulous records of every order we make versus how much we owe versus how much was paid out on it, and time frames, because that's just the way my brain works. And so we called our rep and we said, at Diamond, we literally said, you need to prove to me that this is the case, because you literally just have a piece of paper in an email telling me that we owe this much, but that doesn't match any of my receipts, any of my orders, or any of my transactions against the bank. And then all of a sudden it went away. And so we told them to pound sand, because they're like, oh, it must have been a mistake, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, you're fishing for people that aren't paying attention or don't have good records, because you're trying to get more money out of people. Because if you pay a distributor more than you owe them, they hold it in escrow. They don't refund it. They just apply it to whatever your future orders are. That's been that way forever. So my gut tells me now, looking at this, that they were trying to fleece stores, trying to get extra money in their coffers to try to pay off their debtors. And it's like, good gracious. Diamond has always been a pretty scummy company, but they were a necessary evil because they had distribution rights and sole distribution rights on a lot of stuff. And then like you're looking at this list of names. Some companies have already moved over to others. Like DC is done through Lunar Publishing and has been since, I want to say, February. So there's not a whole lot of DC probably left in Diamond's coffers. But the rest of these, who knows? A lot of these were probably like the only way they could get distribution done. Like IDW is not a huge company. They got some huge IP, but I mean, and that's another angle though that maybe they could take too. Like IDW is like the exclusive comic publisher of all of Hasbro's IPs. I'd be going to Papa Hasbro at this point. I don't like Hasbro, but I'd be like, hey Hasbro, we like doing your stuff.
They've got lawyers.
They've stolen your intellectual property essentially and are trying to sell it as their own. Can you do something about this? That's what I mean. I don't know that they could, but I try to get them involved because then I wouldn't have to try to pay for a lawyer out of my own stuff because they have lawyers. But I'm just looking at this list and like it is like I knew that they had a lot, and there's some stuff on here that even I didn't know they had. And this is going to hurt. This is going to be real painful, depending on that hearing goes on July 21st.
Yeah, I want Hasbro or Disney to get onto this, and then I'm basically going to be the let them fight gift from Godzilla.
Yeah.
But I think we can probably talk about some cooler stuff.
We can move on at this point. I just think we've got to establish that this is thinking about the fact that not only does it sucks in multiple ways, and we would really take a long time to cover all the ways, but just think about all the disruption to books coming out because of this. There's a lot of companies that are just not going to be able to sell you their books. Like straight up, they can't. They don't have it. It's currently in a warehouse somewhere, and someone's trying to sell it to give, again, Citibank needs to get its money. So it's like, yikes. But we should move on. The example, well, this has nothing to do with this, I don't think. But Eberron, Forge of the Artificer, is been delayed until December. It was originally supposed to come out this week, wasn't it?
Next week. Or a couple of weeks. It's close. It's very close when they announced the delay.
And so, do we know like when in December even at this point, or just in December?
December 9th.
Yes. Is
what they've announced. And what they have said about the delay is that they got their books in. It's a cover defect. The covers started warping on their stock of books, and they're going to reprint them from scratch, which is kind of a bummer. I was looking forward to playing with the new artificers and all the new artificer subclasses that are going to be in this book. And now it's delayed until December. It was supposed to be out at the beginning of August. Now it will not be. They are also delaying digital launch of the product to have just one launch. There's one launch for the book that will include where you can also buy digital or physical copies. And I'm pretty bummed out, but also, you know, if Wizards of the Coast sent out books and all of their covers started warping or were warped before people received them, they would take so much flack for it. You know, that would not be the right way to go. Customers would be unhappy, and they already have a pretty bad image problem in the community. So I feel like this was the right choice. I'm also pretty bummed about it.
It's also the cheaper choice. So like the side you don't see too about that is, let's say that they didn't recall them and they ship them out and all of them have a defect. Every store, every book retailer, every big box store, which includes things like Target and Barnes & Noble and other bookstores across the countries, multiple countries that these books are being released in, then can go back to Hasbro or Wizards and say, all of our stuff is damaged. We need new copies, and now you have to pay for all the shipping back and forth. So essentially all they're doing is they're eliminating their cost of recall and eliminating their cost of freight to stores and individuals. And it is better. Like, this isn't the first time they've done this either. So I think they did this with the Deck of Many Things release, if I remember correctly, because we didn't get ours until way later because of some defect in I think it was the cards themselves were like defective. But like, they've done this in the past, and it makes more sense to pull them back from the distributors or pull them back from their warehouse and do it now than suffer the wrath later. So, but good on them for doing it instead of, you know, just rolling the dice and hoping people wouldn't notice.
Yeah, I think that would have basically been a disaster at this point. They've had enough bad press. They really don't need to be, shipping it out and just hoping that they don't warp. But yeah, well, since we're talking about it though, while we're talking about it coming out later than we expected, we also know, because up until this week we thought it was coming next month. Do we know now that the book's going to have half elves in it?
Yeah,
which is interesting because
Koravar,
5th edition,
the new
5.5, yeah. 5.5 had gotten rid of half anythings. There's no half orcs. There's no half elves. You could even, like, I made a character who had a dwarf mom and a human dad in one of our one shots, and you can even say that looks like a human but has dwarf stats. That's in there. So it's interesting that they're bringing back half elves, but the Korvara are basically based on a nation in Eberron that is settled by elves and humans, and they've had intermingling. So in this case, it feels like they're just trying to preserve that nation state and those people who had their own culture. They weren't just half elves. They had their own specific culture. So interesting. I'm not sure if it's going to have any really long-lasting effect other than it is. I think the change to half elves and half orcs was one of the things people really didn't like. A lot of players didn't see. I mean, I liked it. I thought it was great. I'm like, yeah, I'm totally gonna have like a half gnome, half orc, who's looks like a gnome but is orc stats. That'll be great.
Yeah, I think a portion of it.
Seemed to like it.
I think a portion of it though is like the whole idea of like the half elf has been so tied up with D&D's identity, for so long that like taking away like other half lineage, heritages. Okay, that makes sense, but when you take this away, it sort of pulls a portion of the game's identity out. Like so I understand putting it back in, and I understand doing this in Eberron because I think it is really important to the world of Eberron. So having it come back is pretty good. And there are new features for it too. It's not just like it was before, which I think is really cool because not only did they bring it back, but they're giving it a unique identity, which I think makes it more important, right? So yes, you get your dark vision out to 60 feet, and Fey Ancestry still gives you advantage on saves versus being charmed, but you're not immune to sleep anymore. And instead, it's replaced with a feature called Lethargy Resilience, or Lethargy, however you pronounce it. I don't know. Words are hard. And it lets you turn a failed save versus being made unconscious into a success. So it's not just sleep. It's actually a little bit better because you're a little more resilient because you're not just an elf. You're an elf and a human. So I think that's really cool.
But it also at the same time, it doesn't immunize you to this.
Correct.
Yeah, it means one time, like for every recharge, you can say, nope, I don't resist. Okay, well, I'll cast it again.
Well, you have to finish 1d4 long rests before you can use it again.
Yeah.
So it's simultaneously broadened what it can be used for, which I think is really useful. But it also made it a little more in line where it's going to have a longer recharge rate, which is great. And then you have the Fey gift, which lets you get gives you the Friends cantrip, but then you can swap it for any cantrip from Cleric, Druid, or Wizard on a long rest, which I think actually is really, really, really good and extraordinarily versatile.
That is one of the best ways I've seen of having a species that has not completely human ancestry. Not just get nothing from the human side.
Yes,
because like the whole thing with humans now is the versatility is their big thing, and now half elves have both that, which is essentially cantrip versatility, and also skill versatility, where they get proficiency with a skill and they can swap that out on a long rest too. So half elves are apparently kind of built around long rests now, but they're really flexible. The Koravar, rather. So
while we're talking about that, though, also we find out it's now completely confirmed. We now know that this is the truth. Other Eberron, oriented for this now ancestries are also going to be in this book, including the Kalashtar. If you want to do some psionic stuff, and we know that they're working on psionic stuff for Unearthed Arcana, so it's not surprising that they're going to bring that Kalashtar back for us. The changelings, I think, not changelings, shifters. No, changelings and shifters. That's right. Shifters who are basically like Lycanthrope descended. The changelings who are kind of they're sort of descended.
They're shapeshifters.
Yeah, they're shapeshifters. They can do faces stuff. And the good old-fashioned Warforged, who are magic robots.
Who doesn't love a good magic robot?
I love magic
love a good
robots, and
magic
I've
robot.
played several. I've played several in our previous,
I know.
But what's really interesting to me is since this is the Artificer book, and we are getting a bunch of new Artificer subclasses. Maybe they're not really new. We've seen them before.
One new.
And revised for the new 5e rules.
Yeah. But since we're now also getting Warforged rules, you can be a Warforged Artificer, which means you can be working on yourself, which I've always liked about the Warforged and Artificers. I like the idea of a Warforged who's essentially kind of like a mage who casts amplification spells on themselves. The Artificer Warforged is essentially, I'll just make my hand a gun, and it's kind of like body horror if you're a magic robot. So yeah, I am really looking forward to this book when it finally comes out. I'm sad that it won't be out next month because we were talking about running an all Artificer game, and
run it late this year.
Yeah,
but yeah, we all have to wait for that one.
I just realized that the numbers in this book work out that you could make 5 characters exclusively from races in this book using the 5 different Artificer subclasses.
Yep.
Also,
that's so cool.
I would like to note that this is the one book from Wizards this year that I am looking forward to purchasing.
Yeah, I might even pick this one up just because I know we're not playing D&D right now, but my real life table does really like Eberron. So I'll probably end up getting this one as well.
Yeah, I think Eberron's
so
really
cool.
good.
Shout out to Eberron.
It's not Athos for me, but it's still pretty good.
Yeah.
All right, moving to the next story that I think we should talk about because it's cool and interesting. Evil Hat and Crystal Dynamics, who had a licensing agreement for the Tomb Raider games, have decided they're not going to put out a Tomb Raider game. Apparently, it was an amicable split where Crystal Dynamics was presented with what Evil Hat was thinking, and they were like, we'd rather not. And so rather than fight about it, Evil Hat's going to go forward and take the stuff that they had that isn't product identity of the license and make another game out of it. So we are going to possibly get some other kind of RPG based on what they designed for the Tomb Raider RPG, but without the Tomb Raider license. If you're a World of Warcraft player or any Warcraft player, you're sitting right now going, where have I heard this before? Where have I heard somebody taking a license, then not making the licensed property and making something out of it? It is a mystery that we'll never get the answers to. But regardless,
I look at the framed legal notice that I still have. Anyway,
it is a mystery.
Yes. But at any rate, so I'm actually kind of interested in this because, I mean, obviously, there's always going to be a certain amount of, no, everything's fine. We parted ways amicably. And, in reality, who knows what happened. But I like to see somebody not just throwing all that work out. Because they got a lot of contract writers to come in here and write adventures for this thing. And it's not like robbing tombs is that hard a concept to make a game.
There are so many tropes you could fit into this. There are so many kinds of exploration games. And of course, even if you look back at Dungeons and Dragons itself, which is...
Yeah, a lot of tombs.
There's a big part of that is raiding tombs and exploring dungeons. I mean, you could go all out Indiana Jones with something like this. There's so much you can do with this concept. It's a really strong concept. And you don't necessarily need Tomb Raider to make that concept interesting and exciting.
I mean, the 90s Mummy with Brendan Fraser is basically a bunch of people go rob a tomb, realize it was a mistake, and then spend the next half of the movie dealing with the fallout of that tomb robbery they just did.
Mm-hmm. I'd be going to Disney at this point and being like, hey, can we make a National Treasure game and just put Nick Cage's face all over this?
Yes, I am on board with that idea.
Because Disney owns the right to it now.
Nicolas Cage is in it.
You can't tell me that Nicolas Cage would not be down for that.
I'm not saying he wouldn't be down for it. I'm just saying he must actually be involved. I want to see his face on the box. I want to see commercials of Nicolas Cage rolling dice and going, all right there.
It's on the back of the Constitution! And then just running out the door after rolling his dice. Yes, I'm in for this.
I think this is actually I think this will actually work out really well for Evil Hat, because this kind of like their
Frees them
whole
up, yeah.
thing. Yeah, their whole thing is like they kind of make games on their own schedule and they release it when they're done. And that's not really how life works with external licensors. So
Yeah.
I'm sure this is probably really nice for them. Plus, they can kind of tackle something that Crystal Dynamics or IDOS or whoever has had the Tomb Raider license at any time never really did, which is how weirdly colonial Tomb Raider is. In that it's a rich white lady with guns going into tombs.
A rich British
to stop
lady.
other people from sticking. Yeah,
Yes,
that's
a
a rich British lady.
girl.
Yeah, who should never be caught dead saying it belongs in a museum, because we know about the British Museum. There's a whole game about robbing artifacts from it and taking them back to where they're from coming out soon. So I think this will end up being a plus and probably ultimately a gain for Evil Hat. This could be
Absolutely. I really do feel like that the colonialism thing alone, you're totally right. They could absolutely address that in a way that you're not going to see in a Tomb Raider game. Which is why I think the first of the return Tomb Raiders of the current trilogy had almost no tomb raiding. Like it was just Lara Croft getting shot.
Well,
It was
that is a topic for a different podcast.
Yeah. But okay, moving on.
Lord watch Tomb Raider.
See, the thing about this one is I just talked about it a lot, so I don't know that we really need to talk too much about it.
No,
but
I mean, we can point out
Ashes
that it's
Without
available.
Numbers is coming out. It is out now, actually. It's out. You can buy it right now. And it is, in my opinion, the best of a pretty good crop of post-apocalyptic games that have been coming out lately. Like, the Fallout game is pretty solid. It's a Modifus game. It's good. There's really, I have nothing negative to say about it. I think it is one of the most fun. Fallout lends itself to this, and I think it really works very well as a game. But Ashes Without Number, you could make that game in Ashes Without Number. Mm-hmm. It is just, it's a very strong, well-designed game.
It's
Kevin
Crawford,
the name,
right?
Yeah, Kevin Crawford.
Yeah, it's Kevin Crawford. This is kind of his thing.
This is his wheelhouse, and he did a really good job.
Yeah,
Kevin Crawford, who is kind of the power behind Cine Nominee Publishing. Like every one of their Without Number games, even if you don't want to run the OSR system that's in them, always have phenomenal world building tools up to and including. And this is a weird one. Strange Empires is their take on Call of Cthulhu, and the game itself is it's fine, but it actually has phenomenal rules for developing your own set of cosmic deities. Yeah, your own weird mythos, which I love that.
Oh no, it is one of the best things about that book. It's to the point where a friend of mine used that book to make the Marvel magical god like Sidorak and all those as Lovecraftian tile entities, and made of like weird magical, it's like you're a magical superhero, but you secretly work for the old gods, sort of thing. You can do a lot with this system. It's weird because, like I said, you could strip all the OSR stuff out and just use some other system, and this book is still great.
I've used Cities Without Numbers for some of my Cyberpunk stuff, like in some of my my Shadowrun stuff, because there's some things that it conceptualizes better, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
I've used the planetary system building system from Stars Without Number, kind of the first one, for several different games.
Yeah.
Just, we pretty much all we're saying is it's out, you can get it, and it's a good game.
It's worth looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on, because we do have other things we might want to be talking about. We should probably mention this. This one is one that Joe will be better than me. I don't know much about print-on-demand miniatures, other than that's a good thing that they exist. But Paizo is going to be getting them. Could you talk about it, Joe?
Yeah, so print-on-demand miniatures for tabletop games in general has become way more viable since printing at home has become way cheaper and more accessible. An average person for less than $300 US can get a resin printer at home, which doesn't require much ventilation or comes with whatever you need, and print your own miniatures based off whatever files you find. And certain companies have been doing this to either produce their own games whether it's war games or their own role-playing games. Some folks have been doing this to release stuff compatible with your favorite role-playing tabletop games, like 5e compatible modules that come complete with all the print files for all of your terrain settings, all of your creatures, all of your characters, and everything else. It's a really cool concept, and it's been gaining a lot of steam lately. And I have been wondering when a mainstream company is going to be jumping on this bandwagon and actually taking advantage of it. It turns out Paizo is the first one to really start doing this. In advance of Gen Con this year, Paizo, Titan Forge, and My Mini Factory announced a partnership between all of them to produce STLs and print-on-demand miniatures for Pathfinder and Starfinder. They're going to be sculpted by Titan Forge, which is a 3D digital sculptor that not only has their own game stuff, but makes absolutely phenomenal detailed miniatures for tabletop wargaming as well as RPGs, and has been for a while, and releases them almost exclusively through Patreon and My Mini Factory. And My Mini Factory is a 3D printing repository library where creators are allowed to host their files and either run campaigns like their own version of Patreon called Tribes, or to allow access to files with like Patreon subscriptions or whatever the case is, or codes that you purchase from other vendors. And it's also really good for everybody because their search in the online marketplace on My Mini Factory is absolutely fantastic. So now with this, you're going to be able to get miniatures for both Pathfinder and Starfinder, starting with the first 6 main characters or pre-generated characters for Starfinder 2nd Edition, their iconic characters for Murder in Metal City. So it's going to be really, really cool to see this actually take place. I'm really excited. I love being able to, like, I'm going to be nerdy and giddy for a second. The number of times I have looked at the minis that I have printed from my stuff and giggled while saying, I made you out of goo, is not insignificant. And being able to do that with like tabletop miniatures like this, especially like, let's say we want to run a pre-generated campaign or the introductory thing for Starfinder 2nd Edition. Here's everything you need to do it. Here's all the models you need to do it. No more digging for, oh, this maybe looks kind of like my character. So I'm super here for it because they're working with a fantastic 3D sculptor and they're working with a reputable 3D repository site. Like, this is just win-win for everybody. And if this does well, I think this is going to force other companies, other tabletop companies, to look at this going forward. So I'm super here for it. If you are an enthusiast in the hobby space, you should be as well. And I will say the other thing that I think is really cool is, like, you want a little tiny dragon man? You can have a little tiny dragon man. You want to scale that up to 200% and have a big dragon man? You can do that same thing. The versatility is endless. I'm really excited. I'm sorry.
No, you being excited is not a problem, man. That's actually the point. Another thing to mention really fast, Mutants and Masterminds is supposedly coming with a playtest fairly soon for their 4th edition. That's according to Steve Kenson, who is the main designer behind it. Considering what's Green Ronin's going through, we don't currently know much about when this would come out. Because in case you don't know, Green Ronin is the company that originally published and still publishes Mutants and Masterminds. So, yeah, there's that. But nevertheless, they are supposedly working on it. There's supposedly a playtest coming at the end of the month. I am looking forward to seeing it. I've actually never gotten these people to let me run Mutants and Masterminds. And to a degree, I think that Mutants and Masterminds is one of those games that could benefit from a rules light version. Because, oh my word, does Mutants and Masterminds has so many rules that they put out books that are just a subset of their rules expanded to have more rules in them. Like, do you like superpowers?
That's some D&D 4th edition stuff.
Yeah, it's wild. It is wild sometimes with Mutants and Masterminds. But I like it. I actually wrote something for them a few years back before I was really going blind. So if you're looking for danger zones, my name will be there. But regardless, good game. I'm interested to see what Steve comes up with. But yeah, coming soon. Who knows when we'll actually see the game, the playtest document. I'm assuming they're aiming for Origins itself, or if it's the end of the month. Gen Con's this month, right? Or is it next month?
Should be next month, I believe.
Yeah,
if not end of this month. I don't know the exact date. It's usually August.
So
August 1st through 4th this year.
Yeah. if the playtest is coming at the end of the month, then it's very likely they're going to have it at Gen Con. So we already talked about the Fallout War game, so I don't think we really need to talk about that too much. Starfinder 2E is out soon. Liz corrected me on this in the notes, so I'm glad to see that. Player Core is coming out on July 31st. The GM Core is coming out mid-August. Now, because of what's going on with Diamond, you can get the PDFs. They're going to sell them when the release date happens. I don't know when people will be able to get the hardcovers.
Yeah, because likely these were already at Diamond by now, I think.
Go ahead, Liz.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah,
Liz.
we don't know. I mean, on the website, you can order hardcover copies, except for the standard cover Player Core. So I don't know. I don't know what's up with that one. I mean, that could be something caught up with Diamond. But yes, you will minimally be able to get the PDFs for these very soon.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm looking forward to Starfinder 2E because we did a playtest of it last year, I want to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and we're talking
it's
about
been a
doing
while.
another one. Yeah, we're talking about doing another one. And
I think definitely another one. I don't know if you want to do a continuation of the last one we did or do something totally new.
I would probably
either would
not
be
do a
super cool.
continuation.
Yeah,
just because it's been a year and I don't remember what I was.
Yeah, it's like what I don't remember what happened last week, much less last year. So yeah,
it's okay.
So,
you guys can find a different starship to crash.
yeah.
Also the cool looking. Going back to the one Joe was talking about, the cool looking Akashic Dragon monster on the front of the Player Core is another one of the print on demand minis.
Yes, it is.
That thing is so sick looking.
Absolutely cool thing to
the
get.
dragon with a laser for the face.
But in addition to that, we now know that there's an Invincible TTRPG. We've actually known this for a couple of months now because Joe put this in, I think, 2 months ago, and we just never covered it. So yeah, Invincible TTRPG coming out. If you really like to see superheroes explode into piles of blood, then this is going to be the game for you guys.
Well, the key there is with Free League Publishing, which I think is one of the super interesting and noteworthy thing, because Free League is also the ones that work with Lord of the Rings on their TTRPG.
I was just looking at a Free League book.
Yeah, the Outgun stuff is all through Free League. Dragonbane's through Free League. Like the Electric State is through there as well. Dragonbane's through there. Blade Runner's through there.
State,
yeah. They do a bunch of stuff, really big stuff through. So for Invincible to get picked up with that, it's pretty good.
Free League's co-founder is one of the co-designers on this game too.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, Tomas Herenstam. I'm sorry,
Yes.
Tomas. I probably just screwed up your name. Who has credits on like the Alien RPG and Mutant Year Zero, and one of the founders of D&D Beyond, which is a wild person to see another credit.
Yeah, Bradford,
but he worked on stuff like Cortex Prime too. So.
And I want to point this out there because this is baller.
Yeah.
Graphic design by Johan Noor, who did Morkborg. And if you've ever seen Morkborg, I cannot wait to see this book.
Morkborg is a piece of art as much as a game. Yeah. Hey Matt, maybe this will be that rules light superhero game you want.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, frankly, Masks is already that.
Yeah,
but I'm still.
That's what I was just thinking.
It is, but Masks is as much a game about being a teenager as it is about being a superhero.
Oh yeah,
I guess so is Invincible to a degree.
Yeah,
so.
To a degree, absolutely. But then again, Invincible goes from him being a teenager to him being 500 years old. So yeah, there's room in there.
There's wiggle room, yeah.
But with Mutants and Masterminds getting a new edition and with this coming out, it feels like it might be time that superhero RPGs get their once in a decade brief resurgence before they go back away. Since Champions essentially got bought by a video game company and then never really done anything with again, it's basically just been Mutants and Masterminds. So, and Joe mentioned the TriStat system. One of the best superhero RPGs was a TriStat game. Silver Age Sentinels was an amazing superhero RPG, and that when the Guardians of Order died, that game died too. And then there was not Goodman Games.
Greater Than Games.
Yeah, Greater Than Games made the Sentinels comic book, Sentinels RPG based on their, I think, a board game. And
it's based on Sentinels: The Multiverse, which is a multiplayer co-op card game. It's a good RPG, but it's also essentially dead in the water along with Greater Than Games at this point. So.
Exactly. So with all those companies currently kind of treading water, and people desperate enough that they actually went to a Kickstarter for DC Heroes, the 1980s game, and gave them like $1 million. I feel like there's a possibility that somebody might be able to get a new game in and people would be interested. But regardless, yeah, Invincible. I mean, I'm interested, but at the same time, I mean, I loved the Invincible cartoon. Like, I think in a lot of ways it's much better than the comic.
I think it's superior to the comic, honestly, and I'm a big fan of the comic.
But it's hard to read, to watch sometimes. And Invincible, the comic, is hard to read sometimes.
This is, I think, going to be like... Okay, my 2 cents on the superhero genres. We have the lighter one, which I think is Masks. It's rules light, but it is a light-hearted more than anything else. Like, there are some serious topics, but it skews towards, like we said, CW, right? Like, it's that type of audience. You have the one coming out from Outgunned, which is more the cinematic universe style, right? Like, it's more high power, big moments, that type of stuff. And then you have this, which is almost like the grim dark superhero potentially. I mean, the fact that you have design and work in artistry done by folks that have known to be done heavy metal style stuff, like this is going to be a heavy game, and it should be. But I think that's really cool because it shows how versatile of a genre superheroes is. So I'm here for it.
At the same time, if you are looking for a colorful, I just went and saw the new Superman movie, and now I want to make my own superhero game. Maybe not this is all I'm saying. But definitely, if you watch the Invincible series and thought this is really good and dark, yeah, absolutely. But finally, last one, which is I didn't know this was happening. Critical Role's new live show is going to be them converting their D&D characters into Daggerheart characters.
Which
did you write this one, Liz?
Yeah.
Go, please. Yeah, go with it.
So the next live show they're doing is called Oaths and Ash, and it's going to be on August 5th, kind of just Gen Con o'clock. And one of the interesting things about it, they're playing their Campaign 3 characters, but they're playing Daggerheart. And one of the things I'm wondering about this is not an easy translation. Like, when they first started live streaming their games, they converted from Pathfinder to D&D. And, well, okay, those are not the same game. They have a lot of the same DNA. They came from the same place. You can take a Pathfinder character and wiggle it over into D&D. D&D to Daggerheart, D&D to Daggerheart is not like that. And one interesting thing, last episode we talked about a lot of the playtest classes they've been rolling out for Daggerheart, and I do wonder if these things are related. Like, they rolled out a witch and a warlock and a brawler, a different kind of fighter. All of those might actually correspond to characters we could see at this live show. So, like, the big thing I'm looking at here is that if they are changing their Campaign 3 characters to Daggerheart characters, I don't think they're looking back to doing D&D games anymore. Because this is a big switch. I think if and when they do another huge campaign, it's going to be Daggerheart, not D&D. And I think that's really important for the industry because these big shows, whether you personally enjoy them or not, they have onboarded a lot of people into D&D, including me. You know, my ex loved Critical Role. I started watching Critical Role. I started playing D&D. I started DMing D&D. I started looking at other games. That has been my path into tabletop. And I am not the only one in that boat. A lot of people have watched live streams and actual plays and been like, this is so cool. And they've learned about the games. They've learned how to play or run games by watching things they've seen online. So if Critical Role starts doing Daggerheart streams, I think not only does this really start being an onboarding place for people who might be interested in playing Daggerheart, it's also a pretty big blow to D&D because, you know, people aren't going to stop playing D&D. D&D is always going to be there. But I think when you have someone notable like this, switching away and making their game look like an easy, fun option, I think that makes it really hard for D&D. So that's what I think is interesting about this, that this could be Critical Role is big enough to have just that kind of impact. And they've been big in the rise of D&D and the popularity of 5e in a way I think Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro certainly never appreciated. And it's gonna be an interesting year to see what comes of this. And if go on, Joe.
I was gonna say I'm interested in this, and this is something that I think is as much a community service as it is a marketing thing. So not saying that as a negative. I'm just saying for any of you listening at home, this is not me hating on Critical Role or anything. Because I think you are having an adoption problem with the game of Daggerheart. And I think a lot of it is long-term campaign players of other games, in particular like D&D. Like if you've been playing the same character for 5 years, you necessarily are pretty change resistant. Like you're not necessarily want to give that character up and start over again if you haven't done everything you wanted to do with it. So the idea of going to a new game system is a harder sell for somebody in that situation. Like I know for a fact that when I was playing my Elven Gunslinger in my friend's game, we played that for like 3 years. I loved that character. I did not want to play anything else in between until I was done with his story. It was just the way it was. But then you do this and you show how, yes, you can convert this over. Here's the translation. Here's what correlates. And here's the stuff that you could do better, or here's the stuff that we get rid of. I think does a lot for them to have players be a little more open to adopting the game. So I think it's good on their part. I think that I wish they would have done something specifically like this before they released their game book. But here's a really large audience for them to capture, and I think that's actually really...
I mean, it's interesting because it isn't just limited to Critical Role. One game that I was been interested in for a bit, but I hadn't really thought too much about it. I saw a basically a live streamed playthrough of Mythic Bastionland with Chris McDowell.
That's probably the same one I just watched a few days ago.
Yeah, and this one came out a year ago, more or less. And I had no idea what Mythic Bastionland was, other than it's basically his Into the Odd setting, right? I'm not...
sort of, yeah. The way he described it in an interview was like, this is kind of him wanting to make a fantasy game, but without a lot of the cruft that he doesn't like from fantasy games. But also, I think there's a line in Electric Bastionland about as you get out into the old country, it's like stepping back into medieval times. And the thought process that kicked this off for him was, well, what if you went out there and took a right turn and actually stepped into like the mythic past of the world instead of the history of it?
Yeah, so it's an interesting game, but I wouldn't have known much about it if not for this playtest. Like he's got a bunch of people playing it, and that's I know Liz has talked about this before, but the ability to just see people play it, like we used to have to go to people's houses and just start playing the game. Like we didn't have the ability to watch other people play it. If you went to the store and they were playing in the store, people would get real tetchy about you watching them. So it was hard to get this experience that you can get now, where you can just watch people play. And it's like, oh, that's how it works. Or you'll go, oh, D&D combat still takes way too freaking long.
Truth.
Yeah, I think Joe is right too that it is a marketing move, but sometimes marketing moves are good. The role-playing hobby is not big enough that it can do without marketing. We need to get people playing these things, so we kind of have to tell them they're out.
Yeah,
And
Liz
I think
actually recently
You
got
go
me
on.
watching the other Daggerheart live play they're doing, because I have been utterly resistant to watching much Critical Role because of their 4-hour-long episodes. But
And
like
80 of them.
Yeah, but like I can settle in
80.
for like an 8-episode miniseries that I can put on while I'm working, and it's Daggerheart. And I will say it's been really illustrative to see how one of the people who created the game intends for the game to run. Like
Yeah, it does help.
that has been really like illustrative, especially in the way that they handle spotlighting during conflict scenes. I'm like, oh, okay, this actually makes a little more sense now that I've seen it in action rather than just trying to parse it out of the book. But Liz, go ahead.
Like, I know when I was running Daggerheart, that was the thing I struggled with, and watching, Matt Mercer and his team of weirdos play this game, it's like, oh, this makes a lot more sense in combat flow, because certainly when I was running that, I was getting rules wrong. This is a new game. I haven't played it much. I haven't seen people play it much. So there's always a learning curve to any game, even a simple game. And so that's where live streams and actual plays can really help you learn and understand. A lot of times when I have run games in the past, I've looked for actual plays of them to see, okay, how does this work out in practice? And just see what happens, because that's very different from just reading a book or just talking about it with your friends.
But at this point, guys, we have covered this entire document. We've talked about everything. We never do that. However, we accomplished this by going a half hour. So yeah, don't get too excited about it, because we did do that. Here's where we usually do a thing that I don't know the script to, Joe.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and tell you that Blizzard Watch is made possible due to the generous contributions at patreon.com/BlizzardWatch. Your continued support means that this podcast site and community is able to thrive and grow. Blizzard Watch supporters enjoy exclusive benefits like early access to the podcast, better chance of having your question answered on our podcast FAQ, and an ads-free site experience.
Thank you very much. For a kind of last question, I'm going to say, I want to ask all of you, what is your sweet spot on how complicated the rules are? Name a game that you think hits exactly what you enjoy in terms of how much it's got for rules versus how much it's got for just letting people free it. I'm going to start with Joe.
I can't answer that question because I will play literally anything, and I will force it into my will and what I need it to do in order to make the game work, as I have done over the many years with games produced by Palladium or, various flavors of GURPS. What I've done with Shadowrun time and time again for decades. So I don't really have a preference, because I will make literally anything work, because I'm a firm believer of the rules and mechanics are a suggestion, and I'm going to make a cool game no matter what.
Okay. If everybody answers that, this is going to go fast. Phil?
I'll go the opposite, and I'll name an exact game, and I'll tell you exactly who did it. I'm going to plug Fabula Ultima, published by Need Games, designed by Emmanuel Galato. Galeto, yeah. Fabula Ultima is a game that aims to emulate both Japanese role-playing games like Final Fantasy and also their tabletop games, which tend to run a little bit rules lighter than ours. But it does so in a way where it kind of scratches both sides of this divide for me, in that you've got kind of a fairly lightweight resolution system. You've got points that the players can use to kind of swing the story in their favor, similar to like fate points or something like that, which the GM also gets a taste of, which is pretty cool. But then on the other side, it has one of the most crunchiest like character building settings, where like if you like finding cool combos of character abilities, you will love Fabula Ultima. Every character starts at level 5, and you have to divide it among at least 2 of their classes, which are really just like little packages of skills and bonuses. And like just like building characters and seeing like cool combos that you can come up with, makes a little part of my brain very happy. So like it straddles that divide, I think, between here's the crunchy side and here's the narrative side really well. So Fabula Ultima is probably my answer.
Liz?
I'm actually going to say D&D 5e, and part of that is just naturally. I've played D&D 5e more than I've played other games. But, I played some Pathfinder and Starfinder, and I really enjoyed those, but there are so many options that you kind of go crazy with them. Like, there are just so many different ways to build a character. It feels a little overkill. And I've played Call of Cthulhu, which is also, there are a lot of choices to make and mathematical calculations to do while you're making a character. And I played Powered by the Apocalypse and Polymorph games that are more rules light and focused on a narrative experience and kind of playing make-believe with your friends with some rules for arbitration. And what I like about D&D is that it has rules and it has a structure to it. So you have rules to lean on, but you can take a lighter touch. You have a structure when you need a structure, but you can also go lighter. And while I have played both, I am happy to play both. I think I prefer games with an initiative system because it just gives me... It's easier to keep track of for me, because whether I'm playing in an initiative-free system or I'm running an initiative-free system, I kind of have to be in my head watching, okay, when should I jump in? Did I do something this round? I don't remember. And when I'm running a game, it's like, okay, I want to make sure everyone has a chance to move, even though we aren't doing a strict turn-based system. Did this person move? Did they do that last turn? So D&D is kind of it feels like a middle ground. It's not super crunchy, but it has a lot of structure for anything you want to do. But what about you, Matt?
Gamma World. I like Gamma World. I don't know why. There's actually a lot of games that I could say. The thing is there are a lot of games that are equally crunchy, but differently crunchy. Like, honestly, I kind of enjoyed running Rifts. Since Joe mentioned Palladium, I'll just admit it. I enjoyed playing Rifts. The balance was not there. There was no balance. Every book put out new, even more powerful things repeatedly, over and over again. It made 3rd edition look mellow in terms of, like, everything in this book is 10 times better than everything in every previous book. But it was easy to run. It was not hard to run that game. The rules were just enough to run it. Like a lot of superhero games for the same reason. So yeah, but I honestly feel that if I'm going to pick one, I'm going to say Gamma World 4th edition, which is basically just running D&D 4th edition. And quite frankly, I think D&D 4th edition, I understand why people didn't like it, and I didn't like it at first. But now that I've had time to really sit with it, I think it's my most, like, I admire it the most of any D&D game. Just it tried a lot of interesting stuff, and it fixed the wizard problem. Like, mages, we're higher level now. The mage just destroys everything all the time. Everybody with magic is just killing everything, and you martial classes, you just stay here and fight the goblins and keep them off the mages, and the mages are going to just take care of everything. 4th edition, everybody had cool powers they could use whenever they needed to. Everybody had cool, few times a day powers, and everybody had what would effectively be called ultimates if it was in a video game. And I liked it. I straight up thought it was interesting. So I'm going to go with that. But that is the podcast. Thank you so much for everybody for being here with us. I think we'll be back next month because we do this monthly, right? I'm not insane.
Yep.
Okay.
You're not insane. I mean, you may be insane, but not about this.
Yes, not specifically insane in this situation. All right. Well, thank you guys for being here with us.